Captain Alan Rogers stared out the viewport of the Earth Alliance vessel Frontier as the massive Zarelian royal cruiser appeared before them. The alien ship was at least 5 times larger than the Frontier, its hull gleaming with a metal unknown. To humans, it looked like liquid silver that somehow held its shape in space. "They're hailing us, Captain," said Communications Officer Lisa Grant. Her voice steady despite the tension on the bridge. Alan took a deep breath. This moment would go down in history. The first official contact between humans and the Zarelian Empire. He straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, thin being with skin that seemed almost transparent. The Zarelian's face was long and elegant, with large eyes that shifted between purple and blue. When it spoke, its skin rippled with colors. "Earth vessel, you have entered Imperial space. State your purpose." "This is Captain Alan Rogers of the Earth Alliance vessel Frontier. We come on a peaceful diplomatic mission to establish relations between our peoples." The Zarelian studied him for a moment. Its skin turned a cool green. "Your ship will be escorted to the Royal Docking Bay. Prepare a small team to meet with Her Imperial Majesty." The screen went dark before Alan could respond. "Well, that was brief," said First Officer Frank Miller. "Are we really going to dock with that thing?" Alan nodded. "Those are our orders. Earth Alliance wants this diplomatic mission to succeed. The Zarelians control resources we need, and their technology is centuries ahead of ours. And what if they decide to keep us?" asked Security Chief Olivia Martinez, checking her sidearm. "They won't," Alan said with more confidence than he felt. "We're too new and interesting. Select your best 2 officers to join us. We leave in 1 hour." The Frontier was pulled into the enormous docking bay using some kind of tractor beam technology. Alan led his small team down the ramp. Besides himself, the diplomatic party included Frank, Olivia, and Dr. Sam Wilson, their xenobiologist and cultural expert. A group of 8 Zarelian guards waited for them. They were all tall like the one on the screen, but wore fitted armor that seemed to flow with their movements. Their weapons were unlike anything Alan had seen before, not quite guns, not quite energy projectors. "Follow," one of them said simply. The humans were led through long, curving hallways. The inside of the Zarelian ship was beautiful in a strange way. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently with soft light. The air smelled like cinnamon and something else Alan couldn't place. "Their whole ship appears to be partially organic," Sam whispered, his scientific curiosity overcoming his nervousness. "I think it's actually growing." After walking for nearly 15 minutes, they arrived at a set of enormous doors that spiraled open at their approach. Inside was a vast chamber, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. At the far end, seated on what looked like a throne made of crystal, was a Zarelian larger than the others. Her skin shifted through more colors and with more intensity than the guards. "The Empress," Sam breathed. They were marched to the center of the room and stopped about 20 feet from the throne. The guards stepped back, forming a half-circle behind them. "So these are the creatures who dare to venture into Imperial space," the Empress said, her translator converting her harmonic language into English. "They look so fragile." Alan stepped forward with a small bow. "Your Imperial Majesty, I am Captain Alan Rogers. On behalf of the Earth Alliance, I bring greetings and an offer of friendship." The Empress's skin flashed yellow briefly. "Friendship? Your species has barely left its own star system. The Zarelian Empire spans hundreds of worlds and has existed for thousands of your years. What could you possibly offer us?" "A fresh perspective," Alan replied carefully. "Sometimes the youngest civilizations see solutions that older ones have forgotten to look for." This caused a ripple of color to pass through all the Zarelians in the room. The Empress leaned forward slightly. "Interesting. You are bold for such." A fragile being, she rose from her throne and approached. Standing, she was nearly 8 feet tall, towering over even Alan, who was 6 feet himself. She circled the human delegation slowly, studying them. "Your species intrigues me," she said. "Finally. So much variety in your coloring and features, yet you are all the same species, and your emotional responses are so visible," she stopped in front of Alan. I have decided. We will establish preliminary relations with Earth, a cultural exchange. Would be beneficial? We will begin by having one of you remain here as a representative. Olivia tensed beside Alan. Captain, I don't like where this is going. The Empress continued as if she hadn't heard. You, Captain Rogers, will stay as our guest. The rest will return to Earth with our terms for future interactions. That wasn't part of our mission parameters, Frank protested. We're supposed to establish initial contact and then all return together. The Empress's skin darkened to a deep blue. This is not a negotiation. The captain stays as our cultural specimen. The rest of you may go. Specimen? Sam asked, alarmed. Your Majesty, our captain is not a laboratory animal. Of course not, the Empress replied. He will be treated with all due respect for a primitive species. He will have comfortable quarters and freedom to move about certain areas of the palace once we return to Zarella Prime. Alan's mind raced. This was definitely not how the mission was supposed to go. But causing an incident now could ruin any chance of peaceful relations. Your Majesty, perhaps we could discuss alternatives that would satisfy both our people's needs. He suggested. The Empress's skin turned that flash of yellow again. There is nothing to discuss. Guards escort the captain to the preparation chamber. The others will return to their ship. 2 guards stepped forward toward Alan. Frank reached for his sidearm, but Alan held up his hand. No, he said firmly. Stand down, Commander. That's an order. Captain, we can't just leave you here, Olivia said. Yes, you can, and you will, Alan replied. Return to Earth, tell them what happened. Tell them I'm being treated well. He looked directly at the Empress. I am being treated well, correct? The Empress's skin rippled with soft green. You will be a guest of the Imperial Palace. No harm will come to you if you cooperate, Alan nodded to his team. Go, that's an order. Reluctantly, Frank, Olivia, and Sam were escorted back toward their ship. The guards led Alan in the opposite direction. As he walked through the strange corridors of the alien ship, Alan wondered what he had gotten himself into. He was now alone among an advanced alien species, with no guarantee he would ever see Earth. Again, the guard led him into a smaller room with a view of space through a large window. Alan watched as the Frontier detached from the Zarellian cruiser and moved away. Your quarters will be prepared on Zarella Prime, said one of the guards. We arrive in 3 days. When the guards left, Alan stood alone at the window. He thought of Earth, now seeming very far away. He had just become the first human ambassador to the Zarellian Empire, though not in the way anyone had planned. Whatever came next would change human history forever. He just hoped he would live to see it. 3 days passed on the Zarellian royal cruiser. Alan spent most of this time in his assigned room, which was large but strange. The bed was too long for his human body. The lights responded to thoughts rather than voice commands. Food arrived twice a day, colorful gels and liquids that tasted better than they looked. On the 4th day, a guard arrived at his door. We have reached Zarella Prime. The Empress requests your presence for arrival. Alan followed the guard through the winding corridors. They entered a large viewing chamber where the Empress stood before a wall-sized window. Outside, a planet came into view. Zarella Prime. It was beautiful, with swirling purple clouds and vast blue oceans. Captain Rogers, the Empress said without turning around. Come witness your new temporary home. Alan walked forward and stood a respectful distance from her. The planet grew larger as they approached. It's beautiful, he said honestly. Yes, the Empress replied. 20 billion Zarellians live on the surface. Our civilization has existed for 15,000 of your Earth years. That's impressive. Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old. The Empress's skin shifted to a light purple. Yet you've managed space travel. Interesting for such a young species. As they watched, smaller ships flew up from the planet. To escort the royal cruiser, the descent was smooth. Alan could barely feel the massive ship moving through the atmosphere. They landed at an enormous platform connected to what Alan assumed was the Imperial Palace. The structure was unlike any Building on Earth, it seemed to flow upward like frozen liquid with spires that reached impossibly high into the sky. Your quarters are in the eastern wing, the Empress said. You will be given access to certain areas of the palace. Guards will show you where you may and may not go. And how long will I be staying? Alan asked. The Empress's skin rippled with yellow streaks, until I decide otherwise. The guard led Alan through the palace. The corridors were filled with Xerelians who stopped to stare at him. Some looked curious, others disgusted. Alan heard whispers as he passed. The human specimen ... double quote, so small ... Why would the Empress bring it here? His quarters were larger than the room on the ship. There was a sleeping area, a bathing chamber with strange fixtures, and a living space with furniture that adjusted itself to his human proportions when he sat down. The Empress will summon you tomorrow, the guard said before leaving. Food will be delivered shortly. Alan was left alone. He explored his new home, finding clothes in his size already prepared. The window showed a view of the capital city, a vast expanse of those same flowing structures with flying vehicles moving between them. That night, Alan barely slept. He thought about Earth, about his crew. Had they made it back safely? What was Earth doing to secure his release? Or had they written him off as a necessary diplomatic sacrifice? Morning came with a chime from somewhere in the walls. A different guard arrived to escort Alan to his first official meeting with the Empress. They entered a smaller chamber than the grand audience hall on the ship. The Empress sat on a floating chair, surrounded by what appeared to be scientific equipment. Captain Rogers, she said. Today we begin learning about each other. My scientists wish to study you. 3 Xerelians in different colored robes approached. Alan tensed. What kind of study? He asked cautiously. Nothing invasive, the Empress assured him. Scans, observations, questions. We wish to understand human biology and psychology. For the next several hours, the scientists examined Alan. They used devices that created 3D images of his internal organs. They recorded his voice, his movements, even his facial expressions. They asked endless questions about Earth, human society, and his personal life. Fascinating, one scientist said. Their emotional responses are so similar to juvenile Xerelians, yet their intelligence is comparable to adults. I'm right here, Alan said, annoyed at being discussed as if he weren't present. And humans have a full range of emotions at all ages. It's part of who we are. The Empress, who had been watching silently, moved closer. You object to being studied? I object to being treated as less than sentient, Alan said firmly. On Earth, we would call this situation a cultural exchange, not a scientific examination. The Empress's skin flickered with colors Alan couldn't interpret. Very well, dismiss the scientists. When they were alone, the Empress circled Alan slowly. Tell me about Earth, not the scientific facts. Tell me what it means to be human. This was unexpected, Alan thought for a moment. Being human means living, with contradictions. We're capable of great love and terrible violence. We create beautiful art and destructive weapons. We can be selfish and sacrificing, often at the same time. The Empress listened closely. And you, what kind of human are? You, Alan Rogers? It was the first time she had used his first name. It felt strangely intimate. I try to be a good one, he said honestly. I believe in exploration, in finding common ground between different peoples. That's why I joined the Earth Alliance. Even though it led to your capture? Alan met her gaze. I'm not a capture. I'm a representative of my species. The Empress's skin turned a deep blue. A fine distinction, an important one, Alan countered. If I'm a prisoner, then our peoples are at odds? If I'm a representative? Then there's hope for understanding. Interesting perspective. The Empress moved to a floating screen and touched it. Images of Earth appeared, cities, oceans, forests. Your planet is quite diverse, as is yours, I imagine, Alan said. You will see little of it, the Empress replied. For your safety, you must remain in the palace. For my safety or to keep? Me contained? The Empress's skin flashed briefly red. Both, perhaps. There are those in the Empire who would see humans as a threat to be eliminated rather than a curiosity to be studied. This was valuable information. Alan filed it away. And what do you think, Your Majesty? The Empress studied him for a long moment. I have not decided. That is why you are here. In the weeks that followed, Alan settled into a routine. Mornings were spent with the scientists. Afternoons were his own, to explore the permitted areas of the palace. And in the evenings, the Empress would summon him for conversations. These evening talks became the highlight of Alan's days. The Empress was curious about everything: human art, music, literature, philosophy. She asked about Earth's many cultures, its history of wars and peace. In turn, Alan learned about Zarelian society, their rigid caste system, their art that changed colors with the viewer's emotions, their concept of time, which stretched so much longer than human lifespans. One evening, about a month into his stay, the Empress dismissed her attendants earlier than usual. I have received word from my military council, she said when they were alone. Your Earth Alliance has been demanding your return, rather forcefully. Alan wasn't surprised. They would see my detention as hostile. Is that how you see it? Alan considered his answer carefully. I think it began that way. I'm less certain now. The Empress moved closer than she ever had before. Her skin shifted to a soft pink color he had never seen on her. As am I, she said quietly. Something in her tone made Alan look up sharply. The Empress was watching him with an intensity that hadn't been there before. Tomorrow, she said, I will show you more of the palace. Areas no human has seen? Would that interest you, Alan Rogers? Yes, he said, very much. As he was escorted back to his quarters that night, Alan realized something had changed between them. What had begun as a diplomatic incident was becoming something far more complex, and potentially far more dangerous. The next day, Alan woke to find new clothes waiting for him. They were Zarelian in style, but made to fit his human body. The fabric changed color slightly when he touched it, settling into a deep blue that matched his eyes. The usual guard arrived to escort him, but instead of going to the science chambers, they headed to a part of the palace Alan had never seen before. The corridors here were wider, with strange plants growing from the walls. The air smelled sweet. The guard stopped at a large door that spiraled open at their approach. Inside was a vast garden unlike anything Alan had ever seen. Plants of all colors grew in patterns that seemed both wild and planned. Small flying creatures moved between flowers. Water flowed in streams that defied gravity, sometimes flowing upward before falling again. The Empress waited on a curved bench near a pool. Her skin today was a calm, steady blue-green. She wore simpler robes than usual, with fewer ceremonial pieces. Leave us, she told the guard, who hesitated before bowing and departing. This place is amazing, Alan said, looking around. At the garden. It is my private sanctuary, the Empress replied. No one enters without my permission. Not even my highest advisors? Alan understood the significance. I'm honored. Walk with me, she said, rising from the bench. They moved through the garden side by side. The path curved between strange rock formations and pools of water that glowed from within. This garden contains plants from every world in the Empire, the Empress explained. Some are over 1,000 years old. On Earth we have bonsai trees that can live that long, Alan said. Though most of our plants have much shorter lives. Like humans themselves, the Empress noted. Your brief lifespans fascinate me. How do you accomplish anything, knowing you have so little time? Maybe that's why we try to accomplish so much, Alan suggested. We're very aware of our limited time. They reached a small pavilion at the center of the garden. Inside was a table set with food and drink. I had your Earth Alliance send information about human nutrition, the Empress said. These foods should be suitable for you. Alan was surprised. You've been in contact with Earth? Limited contact, she admitted. Enough to ensure your health while here? The food looked like Earth food, fruits, bread, something like cheese. Alan sat across from the Empress and cautiously tried a piece of fruit. It tasted like a peach but with a hint of cinnamon. It's good, he said. The Empress watched him eat. With interest. I cannot consume your food, nor you mine. Our biology is too different. Yet we can breathe the same air, Alan noted. Yes, one of many curious compatibilities. They ate in silence for a while. Alan noticed the Empress was more relaxed here than he had ever seen her. Her movements were less formal, her posture less rigid. May I ask you something personal? He ventured. The Empress's skin flickered briefly with yellow. You may ask, I may not answer. Do you have a name? Besides Empress or Your Majesty? She was silent for a long moment. Zarelian names are ... complex. They change throughout our lives. But yes, I have a personal name. It is Valera. Valera, Alan repeated. It felt intimate somehow, knowing this. You should not use it, she cautioned. It would be considered highly improper. Of course, Alan agreed. Thank you for telling me. Valera the Empress looked at him with those large, shifting eyes. You are unlike any being I have encountered in my 500 years, Alan Rogers. I'm just a human, he said simply. No, you are not just anything. Her skin rippled with that soft pink color again. There is a reason I brought you to my private garden today. Alan waited, sensing something important was coming. The military council is pressuring me to take a harder stance against Earth, she said. They see your people's demands for your return as a threat. They want to respond with a show of force. That would be a mistake, Alan said quickly. Humans respond poorly to threats. It would escalate the situation. I agree. Which is why I have not approved their plans, she paused. But my position is complicated. Some question why I spend so much time with a human specimen. Alan understood the implication. They think I'm influencing you. Yes, her skin darkened. In our culture, an empress must be above all outside influence. I am expected to be perfect, infallible. No one is perfect, Alan said gently, not even an empress. A dangerous thing to say, Valera replied, but her skin lightened again, yet true. She rose and moved to the edge of the pavilion, looking out at the garden. In 500 years, I have never spoken to anyone the way I speak to you. It is ... freeing. Alan stood and joined her. On Earth, we would call that friendship. Friendship? She tested the word. Zarelians do not have friends. We have allies, subjects, mates. But friendship, as you describe it, is not part of our social structure. Maybe it should be, Alan suggested. Valera turned to face him. They were standing very close now. Perhaps that is why you intrigue me so. You offer perspectives I have never considered. A chime sounded from somewhere in the garden. Valera's skin flashed with annoyance. The council demands my presence, she said. We must return. As they walked back through the garden, Alan felt something had fundamentally changed between them. The Empress Valera had shown him a side of herself few had ever seen. The guard was waiting at the garden entrance. He seemed surprised to see Alan and the Empress walking side by side, not as captor and captive, but as something closer to equals. Return Captain Rogers to his quarters, Valera instructed. Then have him brought to the small audience chamber in 2 hours? The guard bowed. Yes, Empress. Before they parted, Valera turned to Alan. What we discussed remains between us. Of course, Alan agreed. Back in his quarters, Alan thought about everything that had happened. The Empress had a name. She had shared confidential information with him. She had brought him to her private garden, where even her advisors weren't allowed, and she was under pressure from her military to take action against Earth action she was resisting. Alan walked to the window and looked out at the Zarelian capital. Somewhere out there, decisions were being made that could lead to peace or war between their species. And somehow he had become central to those decisions. 2 hours later, the guard returned to escort Alan to the small audience chamber. But when they arrived, it wasn't the Empress who waited for him. Instead, a group of stern-looking Zarelians in military attire stood in a half-circle. Captain Rogers, said one whose skin was a hard, cold gray. I am Chief General Drazek of the Imperial Forces. We have questions for you about Earth's military capabilities. Alan kept his face neutral. I'm not authorized to discuss such matters. You misunderstand, Drazek said, his skin flashing red briefly. This is not a request. Alan realized the Empress was not aware of this meeting. This was the military council acting on their own. Where is the Empress? He asked. Her Majesty is occupied with important matters, Drazek replied. In her absence, we will continue the assessment of the human threat. Alan was in trouble. He could feel it. Whatever protection the Empress had been providing was temporarily gone, and he had no idea what these military leaders planned to do with him. Alan stood facing the Zarelian Military Council. There were 5 of them, all with skin in various shades of gray and red. Chief General Drazek stepped forward, towering over Alan. Tell us about Earth's defensive systems, Drazek demanded. As I said, I'm not authorized to share that information, Alan repeated firmly. Another council member moved closer. You have been observed spending considerable time with the Empress. What have you told her? We discuss culture, philosophy, and history, Alan said, not military matters. Drazak's skin flashed dark red. You expect us to believe the Empress brings you to her private garden to discuss philosophy? No outsider has entered that space in 300 years. Alan realized they had been watching him more closely than he thought. I can't explain the Empress's decisions, no, said Drazek. But you can explain Earth's interest in our territory. Your ships have been detected at the edges of our space. Why? This was news to Alan. Earth was sending ships. Were they looking for him or preparing for something else? I've been here for months, Alan said. I have no knowledge of recent Earth Alliance activities, a female council member spoke up. We believe you are a spy. That your diplomatic mission was cover for gathering intelligence. That's not true, Alan insisted. Our mission was exactly what we claimed, to establish peaceful contact. Then why does your Earth Alliance now threaten military action if you are not returned? Drazek asked. Alan tried to remain calm. Because from their perspective, I'm being held against my will. And are you not? Asked Drazek. Before Alan could answer, the doors to the chamber burst open. The Empress entered, her skin a storm of dark blues and purples. 2 royal guards followed behind her. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her voice making the air itself vibrate. The council members immediately bowed. Drazek spoke first. Majesty, we were questioning the human about. I did not authorize this interrogation, the Empress cut him off. Her skin was now almost black with anger. Captain Rogers is under my personal protection. Majesty, another council member began, we have concerns about your interactions with the human. The Empress's eyes narrowed. You dare question my judgment? The council members looked at each other. It was clear they had planned this meeting carefully, but the Empress's unexpected arrival had disrupted everything. We only seek to protect the Empire, Drazek said. The humans grow more aggressive. Their ships approach our borders. We must know their intentions. And you thought to discover this by intimidating my guest? The Empress's voice was dangerously quiet. Alan watched the confrontation with growing concern. He was caught in what appeared to be a power struggle within the Zarelian leadership. Captain Rogers, the Empress said without looking at him, you will return to your quarters. My guards will escort you. Alan knew better than to argue. He left with the royal guards, feeling the heated glares of the military council on his back. As he departed in his quarters, Alan paced nervously. Hours passed with no word from anyone. He tried to make sense of what had happened. The military council clearly disapproved of his relationship with the Empress, and now Earthships were approaching Zarelian space. The situation was becoming increasingly dangerous. Night fell, and still no one came. Alan eventually lay down but couldn't sleep. Just as he was about to give up and get back up, his door slid open silently. The Empress entered alone, without guards or attendants. Her skin was now a calm blue, though flickers of darker colors still rippled beneath the surface. Are you harmed? She asked immediately. No, Alan assured her. Just confused. What's happening? Valera moved to the window, looking out at the night sky. The Council oversteps its authority. They fear what they do not understand. And what is it they don't understand? Alan asked carefully. She turned to face him. U.S. The word hung in the air between them. Alan waited, sensing there was more. The situation grows complicated, Valera continued. Your Earth Alliance has indeed sent ships to our borders. They demand your return and threaten action if you are not released. I'm sorry, Alan said. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Her skin softened to a gentler blue. But the Council believes you influence me to favor humans. They think I am compromised. Are you? Alan asked before he could stop himself. Valera moved closer to him. 500 years I have ruled. Without question. Never once have I been accused of being compromised. She paused. Until now. I don't want to cause problems for you, Alan said sincerely. It is too late for that. Valera's skin shifted to that soft pink color that Alan now recognized as a deeply personal emotion. In truth, I find myself changed since your arrival. Alan's heart beat faster. Changed how? I question things I never questioned before. I see the Empire through your human eyes sometimes. Its flaws, its rigidity, she looked directly at him, its loneliness. Loneliness? Alan repeated. An empress stands apart from all others. It is our way. But you speak to me as a person? Not a position, Alan understood then. Despite her power, Valera was isolated by her role. Their conversations had given her something she had never had before, someone who saw her as more than just the empress. The Council is planning something, Valera said, changing the subject. They have called an emergency session for tomorrow. I believe they will propose military action against the Earthships. That would be disastrous, Alan warned. If shots are fired, it could start a war. I know, which is why I came to you tonight. Valera's skin pulsed with resolve. I need your help. My help? How? I want you to speak at the council meeting, she said. Tell them about humanity. Make them understand that conflict is not necessary. Alan was stunned. Would they even listen to me? They must. As Empress, I can command their presence, and your words may carry weight that mine cannot. She looked at him intently. Will you do this? Alan didn't hesitate. Yes, if there's any chance to prevent a war, I have to try. Relief washed across Valera's skin in waves of lighter blue. Thank you. She moved to leave but stopped at the door. The council believes I brought you to my garden because I was studying you, evaluating. Human deception. And the truth? Alan asked quietly. Valera's skin turned that deep pink again. The truth is far more dangerous. With that, she was gone. Alan stood in the silence of his room, trying to process everything. Tomorrow he would address the Zarelian Military Council, the same group that had just tried to interrogate him. He would try to prevent a war between his people and the Zarelians, and somewhere in the middle of it all was Valera, an empress who was risking her authority and position because of her connection to him. Alan looked out at the alien city. For the first time since his arrival, he felt not like a specimen or even a guest, but like someone who might actually make a difference. Morning would bring the greatest challenge yet. He needed to be ready. Morning arrived too quickly. Alan was given new formal clothes to wear, a Zarelian-style outfit in deep blue with silver trim. A servant explained it was the color of respected visitors, though Alan doubted the military council would see him. That way, royal guards came to escort him to the Grand Council chamber. This room was larger than any Alan had seen in the palace so far. The ceiling arched high overhead, decorated with moving images of stars and planets. In the center was a large circular platform surrounded by tiered seating. The chamber was already filled with Zarelians. Alan recognized the military council members on one side. Opposite them sat what appeared to be civilian leaders, their skin in softer shades of blue and green. Between the groups was a raised crystal throne where the Empress would sit. The guards led Alan to a small platform near the center. He stood there alone, feeling the stares of hundreds of Zarelians. Their skin colors shifted as they whispered to each other about the human in their midst. A loud tone sounded through the chamber. Everyone stood as the Empress entered. Valera wore her full ceremonial regalia today, a flowing robe embedded with crystals and a crown-like headdress that caught the light. Her skin was a steady, royal purple. She took her place on the throne without acknowledging Alan, though he felt her awareness of him. "This emergency session of the Imperial Council is now open," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. "We are here to discuss the human vessels that approach our borders and determine our response." Chief General Drazak stood. "Majesty, the Military Council recommends immediate action. We should deploy the Third Fleet to intercept these ships and make clear that any further advancement will be considered an act of war." Murmurs ran through the chamber. A civilian council member rose next. "Is diplomacy not possible? We know little of these humans beyond the specimen we have studied." Alan winced at being called a specimen again, but kept his face neutral. "The humans have already shown aggression by sending armed vessels to our borders," Drazak argued. "They cannot be trusted." "Perhaps," the Empress said, "we should hear from someone who knows humans better than any of us." She turned to Alan. "Captain Rogers, you may address the council." All eyes turned to him. Alan took a deep breath and stepped forward on his platform. "Members of the council, I stand before you not as a specimen or a prisoner, but as a representative of Earth. I am here to tell you that humans do not want war with the Zarelian Empire." The chamber was silent, everyone watching him intently. "The ships you have detected are likely searching for me," Alan continued. "On Earth we do not abandon our people. They believe I am being held against my will, and they are concerned." "Are you not?" called out Drazak. Alan looked directly at the general. "My situation is complicated, but I believe there is an opportunity here for both our peoples. Humans and Zarelians are different in many ways, but we share important qualities. We both value knowledge, we both seek to protect our homes. We both can choose peace over conflict." Alan turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. "I have learned much about your civilization during my time here. You have art, science, and history that humans would find fascinating. And I believe you would find much to admire in humanity as well." "The human speaks well," a civilian council member commented, "but words do not change the fact that their ships approach our territory." "That is true," Alan acknowledged. "But consider this. What if instead of sending warships to meet them, you sent me?" A wave of surprised murmurs swept through the room. "Explain," the Empress commanded. "Let me return to the Earthships," Alan said. "I can tell them what I've learned here. I can explain that the Zarelian Empire wishes for peaceful relations. I can be the bridge between our peoples." Drazak's skin flashed red with anger. This is clearly a ploy to escape. Once free, he will tell his people all he has learned about our defenses. "I have learned nothing of your defenses," Alan pointed out. "I have been kept away from all military information. What I have learned is about your culture, your history, your way of life. That is what I would share with Earth." The council erupted in debate. Some members supported Alan's proposal, others sided with Drazak. The Empress watched silently, her skin revealing nothing of her thoughts. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. "This matter requires careful consideration. The council will recess while I consult with my advisors." Everyone stood as the Empress left the chamber. Guards came to escort Alan back to a small waiting room. He paced nervously, wondering if his words had made any difference. An hour passed before the doors opened again. But it wasn't a guard who entered. It was Valera herself. "Alone. The council remains divided," she said without preamble. "Drazak and the military leaders push for war. They believe it is inevitable." "It's not," Alan insisted. "Humans are aggressive sometimes, yes, but we prefer peace when possible." "I believe you," Valera said. Her skin shifted to that now familiar pink, but I may be the only one who does. "What will happen now?" Alan asked. "I must make a decision. As Empress, I have the final authority." She moved closer to him. "If I send you back, will you return to us? Will you help create a lasting peace between our peoples?" "Yes," Alan said without hesitation. "I give you my word." Valera studied him intently. In 500 years, I have never trusted anyone the way I trust you, Alan Rogers. It defies all logic and tradition. Sometimes the best decisions do, Alan said gently. She reached out and, to Alan's surprise, took his hand in hers. It was the first time they had touched. Her skin was warmer than he expected and seemed to pulse with energy. "Return to the council chamber," she said. "I have made my decision." When they re-entered the Grand Council chamber, a hush fell over the assembled Zarelians. All eyes were on the Empress and the human walking side by side. Valera took her place. On the throne, Alan stood on his platform. "I have considered all arguments," the Empress announced. "As ruler of the Zarelian Empire, I hereby declare that Captain Alan Rogers will be returned to the Earth vessels as our ambassador of peace." Drazek leapt to his feet. "Majesty, this is madness. You cannot trust a human." "I can, and I do," Valera replied firmly. "The military council objects to this decision," Drazek insisted. "The human has clearly influenced you in ways that compromise your judgment." A dangerous silence fell over the chamber. No one had ever spoken to the Empress this way in public. Valera rose slowly from her throne. Her skin darkened to a deep purple shot through with streaks of gold, a color Alan had never seen before. "You question my judgment, General Drazek?" she asked quietly. "I question the human's influence over you," Drazek replied. Not backing down. What happened next shocked everyone in the chamber. The Empress stepped down from her throne and walked to Alan's platform. She stood beside him, facing the council. "Then let me make my position perfectly clear." Without warning, Valera reached up and removed her imperial crown, an act so forbidden that audible gasps echoed through the chamber. Her guards froze in shock, their skin turning pale with confusion. "For a millennium, the Zarelian Empire has believed that isolation and superiority were the keys to our survival," she said, her voice ringing with authority despite the removal of her crown. "Today that changes." She turned to Alan and, in front of the entire council, placed her forehead against his in the ancient Zarelian gesture reserved only for equals. She ignored all decorum, someone whispered in horror. Even her guards froze. At what she did to him, the chamber erupted in chaos. Council members were on their feet, shouting. Guards looked to each other in confusion, unsure whether to intervene, but Valera stood tall, her skin now glowing with that golden purple light. "Captain Rogers will return to Earth as our ambassador," she declared over the noise. "And when he returns to us, we will begin a new chapter in the history of both our peoples. Those who cannot accept this change may step down from their positions." She looked directly at Drazek. "Choose carefully, General." The military leaders' skin paled. He looked around the chamber, seeing that many council members were already accepting the Empress's declaration. "As you command, Majesty," he said finally, bowing stiffly. Valera turned to Alan. "Ready a ship," she ordered a nearby attendant. "Captain Rogers leaves for the Earth fleet immediately." As preparations were made, Valera spoke quietly to Alan. "Return to us," she said simply. "There is much work to be done." Alan nodded. "I will." He knew that his return to Earth would be just the beginning. Building peace between humans and Zarelians would take time and effort. But watching Valera put her crown back on, her skin still shimmering with that confident golden purple, he had no doubt it was possible. And perhaps something even more unexpected had begun, something that would change both their worlds forever.